My husband left me stranded in a small Spanish village to teach me a lesson. He and his friends thought it'd be funny, so I disappeared. Mateo's laughter cut through the air like a knife, sharp and cruel. The doors to the rental car slammed shut, and I stood frozen in the cobblestone street of a Spanish village I'd never even heard of until this morning. The sound of tires screeched faintly as the car disappeared around a bend, trailing dust and laughter from the men inside, my husband and his friends. They really left me. I blinked at the empty road. My mouth still hung open mid-sentence, locked in the heat of an argument that now seemed embarrassingly one-sided. One moment we were fighting in front of a cafe, me begging Mateo to stop drinking so much, him slurring insults with too much pride in front of his friends. The next moment, he was in the car. And now, gone. He wasn't coming back. Before we go further, don't forget to like this story, hit subscribe, and tap the bell, so you don't miss what happens next. I kept repeating that to myself like some kind of grounding mantra. He's just trying to scare me. He'll come back. Any second now. Any minute. But he didn't. The village around me was still alive, couples eating paella at sidewalk tables, a busker playing a guitar near the fountain, children laughing in the plaza. But I might as well have been in outer space. No one seemed to notice that a woman had just been discarded like a used napkin in the middle of their picturesque postcard town. I checked my phone. No signal. No Wi-Fi. No familiar language being spoken around me. I could barely pronounce the name of the town, let alone navigate it. The knot in my stomach tightened. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. It all started over lunch. Mateo and I had come to Spain on what was supposed to be a relaxing getaway, a chance for him to reconnect with his old college buddies during their annual guys trip, with the added twist of me joining this year. I wasn't invited, not really. Mateo had made that clear when I first suggested it. It's just a tradition, I say. You wouldn't enjoy it. But I insisted, because I had started noticing the space growing between us back in Boston. The late nights, the hidden texts, the dismissiveness. I thought maybe a shared trip would help patch things. I was wrong. By the second day, they were drinking by noon, laughing about things I wasn't supposed to understand. When I gently reminded Mateo to pace himself, Connor, the loudest of the bunch, grinned and said, "She's always trying to mom you, bro." And that's when the insults started. First subtle, then louder, then cruel. "You're always controlling," Mateo had spat as we stood outside the cafe. "Always managing me. Your purse has your passport, right? Then you'll figure it out. You're so smart, always telling me what to do." And then he got in the car. And they drove away. I sat on the curb near a fountain as twilight crept in. My hands trembled as I opened my wallet. €80 in cash. That's it. All of my credit cards? Still with Mateo. He had offered to carry them earlier, since my small purse looked bulky. I hadn't questioned it. Stupid. I wandered for an hour, finally stumbling into a small pension above a bakery. A kind elderly woman with warm eyes and flour-dusted hands led me upstairs without asking too many questions. The room was basic, a narrow twin bed, a cracked mirror, a sink in the corner, but it was shelter. I turned on my phone and started calling. First Mateo. Straight to voicemail. Then Connor. Blocked. Luca. Blocked. All of them. They had planned this. My hands shook harder now. My breath came in short gasps. I wasn't just lost. I was stranded. On purpose. Abandoned. Who does that to their wife? I curled up on the bed and stared at the cracked ceiling as panic set in. I was in a foreign country, alone, broke, and completely cut off. And worst of all, I still thought maybe he'd come back. That he'd text. That I'd hear the car pull up again, and he'd be there, sheepish but defensive, blaming me for overreacting to his joke. That I'd cry, yell, threaten to leave, and he'd promise to make it up to me. That's the twisted thing about abuse. You learn to hold your breath just in case they remembered to love you again. But by morning, the air was still empty. On the second day, I rationed my money. 1 panini for lunch. 1 bottle of water. I wandered the edges of the village, checking every hotel, every alley, hoping I might spot our group. Maybe they'd turned around. Maybe they'd left a note. Anything. But they were gone. They'd moved on to Barcelona or Valencia or wherever the hell their trip was taking them next. I wasn't part of the plan. By evening, my stomach gnawed at itself. My body was running on fear and bread. I sat on a bench under a dim street lamp and tried not to cry in public. Again, a cafe owner must have noticed the way I lingered, because he waved me over and handed me a tiny espresso. No pay, he said, tapping his chest with a smile. Solo. I mumbled thanks in broken Spanish, tears burning behind my eyes. He pointed me toward the nearest police station. It didn't help. The officer's English was shaky. My Spanish was worse. He filed a report, nodded sympathetically, offered me a cup of bitter tea, then sent me on my way with a vague promise of investigation. They weren't going to help me. No one was. I was on my own. That afternoon, I did the unthinkable. I stood outside a pawn shop with trembling fingers and pulled off my wedding ring. A 2-carat diamond Mateo had gifted me on our 5th anniversary. His make-good after I caught him texting his ex. The pawnshop owner examined it, offered me a price far lower than it was worth. But it was enough. Enough for a bus ticket. Enough for one more night. Call America, he suggested kindly as he counted out my cash. I nodded, but I didn't. Calling my family meant explaining. It meant my mother's "I told you so." It meant my best friend just reminding me of all the red flags I ignored. It meant facing the mirror and saying out loud that I had been emotionally broken for years and had done nothing about it. So instead, I walked to the bus station. And as I stared at the electronic departure board, watching destinations flicker Madrid, Seville, Barcelona, I made a different choice. I wouldn't go home. I would disappear. By the time the overnight bus rumbled into the final coastal stop, I'd gone nearly 36 hours without sleep and even longer without hope. The sun was just rising, casting long shadows across whitewashed buildings nestled into the cliffs. A soft breeze carried the scent of salt, lavender, and something earthy like sun-warmed stone. I stepped off the bus into a sleepy Spanish village whose name I hadn't even caught. The last thing I remembered from the bus ride was the way the sky darkened as we passed endless olive groves, the trees glinting silver in the moonlight, waving gently like old women blessing the land. My phone battery had died sometime during the second bus transfer. My stomach was hollow, my mouth dry, and my blistered feet barely fit inside my sandals anymore. But I kept walking. Past shuttered windows. Past goats on the hillside. Past people who didn't know me and wouldn't ask me what I was running from. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what came next. But I knew one thing. I was never going back. I didn't pass out dramatically. I didn't faint into someone's arms like in a movie. I simply sat down on the edge of a path near a grove of olive trees, leaned back, and let my body give up. My knees buckled. My chest tightened. I closed my eyes and whispered one word, enough. Then everything went dark. A voice woke me. Soft. Female. Sharp with concern. "Estás bien?" I blinked. A woman's face hovered above mine, lined with age and worry. Her hands were leathery and sun-darkened, smelling of rosemary and soil. Her voice softened as she spoke again, gentle, rhythmic syllables I couldn't understand, but didn't need to. She poured water from a tin canteen into a wooden cup and lifted it to my lips. I drank like I hadn't in days. Then, with surprising strength, she pulled me to my feet and gestured toward a small stone house nestled among the olive trees. I nodded. I couldn't speak. I don't even remember the walk there. Her name was Rosa. I learned that quickly because she repeated it while patting her chest. Then she pointed to me. "Isabella," I croaked. My voice was raw. My throat burned. "Isabella," she repeated, nodding. Inside the farmhouse, the kitchen was warm and smelled of herbs. Bundles of oregano and lavender hung from wooden beams above a small clay stove, where something thick and savory simmered in a pot. A man appeared in the doorway, eyebrows raised. "Santiago," Rosa said, gesturing to him. He gave me a look that was half curious, half cautious. I wasn't a welcome guest. I was a mystery. Possibly a burden. Possibly worse. I understood that. I would have been suspicious of me, too. Rosa seated me at a wooden table, pressed a bowl of soup into my hands, and said something that sounded like Comer. I ate. Slowly. Then greedily. Then with tears sliding down my cheeks. They didn't ask me what happened. They didn't demand answers. They just fed me. That was the first kindness I had been shown in weeks that didn't come with strings or pity. That night, they let me sleep in their daughter's old bedroom, Camila, I'd later learn. Whitewashed walls, a faded quilt, and the scent of wood smoke and clean laundry. I collapsed into bed and didn't move for 12 hours. When I woke, I found a dress folded neatly at the end of the bed. It was simple, cotton, a little loose, but clean. Next to it sat a pair of boots, well-worn, clearly loved, but small enough to fit. I stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized myself. Sunburned nose, puffy eyes, hair tangled into something feral. But for the first time in days, I didn't look like someone who'd been left behind. I looked like someone new. Rosa and Santiago didn't speak English. I didn't speak Spanish. But somehow, we made it work. I pointed to things and learned their names. Agua, Pan, Sol. They pointed to me and said, Trabajo? Work. I nodded. It felt better than waiting for something or someone to rescue me. That day, they put a small rake in my hands and showed me how to comb olives from the trees into nets laid beneath the branches. Santiago demonstrated the movement, precise, repetitive, careful. Suave, he said. Gentle. I tried. I failed. I tried again. By midday, my arms burned. My back ached. My feet throbbed. Rosa watched me wince and brought out a jar of thick, greenish balm. She rubbed it into my hands with a tenderness that undid me completely. Gracias, I whispered, eyes welling. She patted my cheek. Mañana, mejor. Tomorrow, better. That evening, they invited me to sit on the porch. Santiago smoked a pipe while Rosa knit something from a ball of soft brown yarn. They didn't speak much. Neither did I. But there was peace in the silence. A rhythm. A breath. And for the first time since Mateo drove away, I didn't feel humiliated. I felt safe. Over the next 3 days, I offered to leave. More than once. I gestured toward the road, toward the village below. I even pulled out the few euros I had left, trying to insist they let me pay for the room, the food, the balm, the boots. But Rosa just shook her head and pushed my hand back to my chest. Corazon, she said. Heart. That word hit different. Because in Boston, everything had a price tag. Even love. Especially love. Here, they weren't asking for anything. Just that I stay. On the 4th day, Rosa led me to the fireplace and opened a wooden box. Inside were photos. A young girl with Rosa's eyes. A graduation cap. A wedding dress. Then later, a woman holding a baby. Then just the baby. She pointed. Camila. Then my distance. Australia. Then she tapped her chest. Her eyes welled up. Gone. Suddenly, I understood. I wasn't a guest. I was filling a space. Not replacing, but mending. And instead of guilt, I felt something else bloom inside me. Something like belonging. Each morning, I worked. Each evening, I ate. And slowly, the looping thoughts of Mateo's laughter, of the car speeding away, of the life I had given up everything for, started to fade. Not disappear, but fade. Because in this little olive grove, no one asked me to be perfect. No one asked me to shrink. No one asked me to explain my worth. They just handed me tools and said, join us. And that was the most healing thing I'd ever experienced. I didn't say his name for weeks. Not because I forgot, but because I didn't want it to follow me here. 3 weeks passed in a rhythm that felt like a heartbeat. Morning sun. Coffee with Rosa. Hands in the soil or raking olives. Bread baking. Evening quiet. The distant hum of a radio playing from a neighbor's farmhouse. Santiago humming as he sharpened old tools. Rosa's laugh whenever I mispronounced a word. It was slow living. Unfamiliar. Raw. And for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't bracing for impact. Back in Boston, I had lived in a kind of constant readiness. Hyper-aware. Hyper-useful. Hyper-careful. My marriage had trained me to anticipate moods like weather systems. To decode silences. To apologize first, just in case. Here, no one expected me to be anything except present. They didn't ask for apologies. They didn't even ask for explanations. But the silence surrounding Mateo's name wasn't accidental. I hadn't told Rosa or Santiago much. Just that I'd come from far away. That I needed to rest. That I was trying to figure out what came next. I think they knew there was more. I think they chose not to ask. Because sometimes, kindness means not pressing the bruise. But the bruise was still there. Under everything. Every time I touched the scar on my ring finger, still faint but ghostly enough, I remembered. Every time I caught myself watching the road, half expecting a rental car to appear like some twisted mirage, I remembered. He hadn't called. Not that I would have known. My old phone sat in a drawer, untouched since the night I arrived. I'd left my American email accounts idle. My number, inactive. I hadn't even checked to see if anyone was looking for me. It wasn't about fear. It was about control. For once, I was the one deciding who got to find me. One afternoon, Rosa and I were sorting olives into baskets when she paused and touched my hand gently. Casa, she asked. Then, America. I nodded. Volver, she said. Return? I hesitated. I didn't know how to answer. I picked up an olive and held it between my fingers. Boston, I said slowly. Then Mom typing on a keyboard. Disinadora. Interior. Her face lit up. Decoration, she nodded. Then gestured around her home. Hermoso. I laughed softly. Gracias. And then, without meaning to, I said it. Mateo. His name dropped from my lips like a coin in a well. Rosa looked at me, her expression unreadable. My esposo. Ex. I'm on to ring, then slipped it off. Her face softened. I didn't say more. But she nodded, then took my hands in hers and simply said, Ahora, Libra. Now free. In that moment, that quiet acknowledgement, it undid me. That night, I dreamed of him. Not the charming Mateo from our early years, the one who made me tea during my migraines, who once danced with me in our living room to no music. I dreamed of the real one, the one who left me in Spain to teach me a lesson, the one who laughed as he drove away. In the dream, I wasn't sad. I wasn't chasing him. I was watching him disappear down a hallway with no doors, carrying a version of me I no longer recognized. And I let her go. I woke up to rain. It had been dry for weeks, and the village welcomed the weather like an old friend. The rooftops glistened. The dirt paths turned soft. And for once, no work was needed. I spent the morning helping Rosa with laundry and meal prep. She gave me a long, faded dress to wear, and we baked bread together. She didn't measure anything. Just flour, water, oil, salt, and instinct. When I asked about a recipe, she laughed. Corazon, she said again. Heart. Later that day, while organizing the pantry, I found an old photo album tucked behind a sack of rice. I flipped through it. Black and white wedding photos. A baptism. Rosa and Santiago in their younger days, surrounded by people I'd never met. Then a page with just one photo, Camila. She was standing in the very olive grove I'd worked in, wearing the same boots Rosa had loaned me. Her smile was radiant. Free. On the next page, a photo of a small child. A baby in a red onesie. Taped next to it, a folded letter in Spanish. I couldn't read it all, but I saw the word Australia and Lo siento. I'm sorry. Camila hadn't just left. She had vanished. The way I had. That night, I sat on the porch with Santiago. He offered me his pipe once. I declined. Then he asked, slowly, Isabella, tu quedas? Are you staying? I took a long breath. I don't know. He nodded, then pointed to the trees. Elos quieren que sí. They want you too. I smiled, blinking back something in my chest that felt like pressure but might have been gratitude. But that pressure had to go somewhere. And the next day, it did. Rosa and I went into the village to sell some oil and cheese. On the walk back, I spotted a tourist couple, American, probably late 20s. She had a bag from a Boston bookstore. My heart nearly stopped. I wanted to run up to her. To say, I know that place. I used to live there. I used to be someone else. But I didn't. Instead, I waited until we got home, took out my old phone, and for the first time in weeks charged it. I didn't know what I was expecting. But when it finally powered on, 117 unread emails, 8 voicemails, dozens of text messages, a flood of missed calls. But no Mateo, not one. The morning after I powered up my phone, I left it charging on the windowsill and didn't touch it. I'd seen the messages, the missed calls, the familiar names from a life that suddenly felt light years away. Friends, old coworkers, 1 or 2 distant relatives, even a number I vaguely remembered as my college mentor. But not Mateo. Not even one line. Not a where are you, not a come home, not even a fake apology to save face. There had been silence from him, not just in action, but now in evidence. And that silence said everything. He wasn't looking for me. And maybe that's what made it so easy to stop looking for him, too. The olive trees didn't care what I used to be. They didn't ask if I had degrees, if I spoke the language well, if I belonged. They just asked me to show up. And day after day, I did. Santiago showed me how to use the wooden rake more efficiently, flicking gently rather than dragging. Fuerza suave, he'd say, soft strength. I like that. It sounded like something I could build my life around. Rosa began teaching me how to press the olives for oil. It was a slow process, beautiful, even. The sound of the millstones. The smell. The way the dark, rich liquid separated slowly into golden hues. One morning, as we poured the oil into glass bottles for the upcoming market day, Rosa handed me one. She had added a sticker label to the front in blocky penmanship, Aceite d'Oliva, Isabella. I blinked. For me. She nodded. Too low. Your batch. Just like that, I had something that was mine. The next village market was the first time I stood behind the table. Not as a helper, as a seller. Rosa set up the jars and bottles, while Santiago greeted neighbors. I adjusted the display, fidgeted with the placement, unsure if I was doing too much or not enough. Then a tourist walked by and paused. "Do you speak English?" she asked. I blinked. "Yes," I said, my first word in English in what felt like weeks. She picked up a bottle. "What's this one taste like?" I hesitated, then remembered what Santiago had taught me. It's a softer profile, less peppery, better for finishing. Try it on grilled bread or roasted vegetables. She smiled and bought two. Rosa slipped the cash into his small pouch and gave me a proud smile that said more than words ever could. That night, I opened the envelope Rosa had quietly left by my bedside. 38 euros. My share. It wasn't much. Less than what I used to spend on coffee and croissants for Matteo and his colleagues when I played the good hostess. But it felt huge. Because I had earned it. With my hands. My labor. My words. And that little envelope? It whispered, "You can do this." I started writing again. Not emails. Not reports. Journals. Sketches. Floor plans of tiny Spanish cottages I saw in the village, reimagined with light and reclaimed wood in terracotta tile. One night I showed Rosa a drawing. She studied it, nodded, and said, "Hermosa." "Beautiful." "Your house," she added, tapping the tiny scribbled roof. Maybe it was just something nice to say. But I started sketching more after that. A week later, Rosa handed me an old black laptop. Dusty. Outdated. But functional. It had belonged to Camila. "You try," she said, miming typing. I reinstalled the design program. Just for fun. Just to see if my brain still worked the same way it used to before I shrank it down to make room for Matteo's ego. It did. I mocked up a flyer for the olive oil, translated it in Google Translate, and showed it to Santiago. He blinked, then grinned. "Professional," he said. That week, we printed 50. Tourists loved them. Locals asked if we could make one for their honey, their cheese, their soap. Suddenly, I wasn't just an extra pair of hands. I was useful in a way that wasn't about cleaning or organizing or smoothing over someone else's anger. I was valuable. One afternoon, while gathering eggs, Rosa joined me outside. She sat beside me on the stone bench and pulled something from her apron pocket, a photo. It was her daughter Camila, standing beside Santiago in the olive press room. Behind them, a man I'd never seen, holding a baby. "Nieta," Rosa said softly. "Granddaughter." She pointed to Australia on the map on her phone, then made the familiar motion of distance. Then she placed her hand on mine and asked, "Cadis, are you staying?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked at the henhouse, the grove, the stone farmhouse behind us. I thought of my name scribbled on an olive oil label. I thought of 38 euros under my pillow, of the soil under my fingernails and the ache in my shoulders that meant I did something real today. Then I looked at her and nodded. "See? Me quedo. I'm staying." That night, I finally opened one of the emails from my old life. It was from Claire, my mentor from Boston, the one who had gotten me my first internship. The subject line, "Position still open, remote consultant. Sustainable design team." She had sent it weeks ago. And again. And again. The last line in the most recent email said, "If you're out there, if you're safe, and you want this, I'll hold the door open until I can't anymore." I sat there for a long time. Was I ready to bridge the old and the new? Could I work remotely, from here? Could I finally be both things? The person I used to dream of being and the woman I have become in the dirt? I started drafting a reply. And then the ping. A new email. From a sender I hadn't seen in months. Mateo. Subject. I know where you are. My breath caught. I opened it. It took me a while, but I finally found you. I booked a flight to Spain. We're going to talk about this face to face. Enough is enough, Isabella. Be ready when I get there. I stared at the screen. My heart didn't race. My stomach didn't twist. There was no panic. Only one clear, pulsing thought. He's coming. But I'm not the woman he left behind. Mateo arrived on a Thursday. Rosa had been in the garden, sorting herbs into bundles. Santiago was sharpening pruning shears under the awning. I was inside, bottling the last of the week's olive oil, double-checking our labels and inventory. The hum of the rental car engine broke the quiet like a firecracker. I froze. Not from fear. Not exactly. It was like hearing a song you hadn't listened to in years, a song that once defined a moment in your life. Except now, the lyrics don't make sense anymore. The music sounds smaller. Dated. Off-key. Rosa stepped into the kitchen, brushing her hands on her apron. El hombre, she said softly. I nodded. Elvie ain't a pour me. He's here for me. She didn't ask questions. She didn't panic. She simply gave me the look of someone who had already seen enough of life to know when a storm is just weather and when it's a reckoning. He stepped out of the car like he owned the place. Sunglasses. Button-down shirt that probably cost more than a month of olive oil sales. Designer shoes not meant for the dust road under them. Mateo was always polished. Even his chaos came packaged. He scanned the farmhouse, eyes narrowed with judgment. Then he saw me. And for a moment, just 1 second, he looked unsure. Like he was expecting someone else. Isabella. My name sounded unfamiliar in his mouth. Like he hadn't earned the right to say it anymore. I didn't run to him. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I stepped forward, calm, steady, dust on my boots, oil on my hands. Mateo. He opened his arms, fake warmth radiating off him like cheap cologne. I've been trying to find you for months. What the hell happened to you? You happened, I said. He tried to usher me toward the car. Let's go somewhere. Just us. We need to talk. I didn't move. We can talk here. Anything you have to say, say it now. Behind me, Rosa and Santiago stood in the doorway. Silent. Watching. Not interfering. But present. Mateo squinted past me at them. Are they the ones who've been keeping you here? I almost laughed. Keeping me? No. They offered me a roof. A place. A purpose. You're the one who left me stranded on a street corner like luggage. That was a mistake, he snapped. A drunken mistake. My friends were pushing me. It was a joke. Bad taste, sure, but a joke. You know I never meant to. You meant to humiliate me. I said, cutting him off. You meant to punish me for not laughing when your friends made sexist jokes. You meant to teach me a lesson. His mouth opened, then closed. You just didn't expect me to learn something different than you planned, I said. He pulled off his sunglasses and stepped closer. Look, ISA, you've had your time to think. I know you're mad. I get it. But this, he gestured to the grove. This isn't you. I tilted my head. And you would know who I am? He scoffed. We had a good life. Boston, your own studio, our friends, our apartment. You're really throwing all that away for what? Chickens and olives? No, I said. I'm trading control for freedom. Shame for dignity. I'm trading silence for my own voice. That's a bargain I'll make every time. He blinked. So that's it. You're really staying here. I nodded. Yes. His voice rose, cracking. I looked for you. I hired someone to find you. You had no interest in finding me when I was sleeping on a twin bed above a bakery with 80 euros and no passport, I said. You didn't care until it became inconvenient that I left. He tried again, softer this time. The manipulator. The charmer. I know I messed up, but come on, ISA. You belong with me. Not here. Not like this. I stepped closer until I was just within reach. Then I said the one thing that ended the conversation. I don't belong to anyone anymore. He stood there, speechless, angry, his hands clenched at his sides. You'll regret this, he said finally. When the romance wears off, when you're still scrubbing dirt out of your nails at 60, you'll wish you'd come back. No, I said. I might regret a lot of things in my life, but I'll never regret choosing me. Behind me, Santiago stepped forward, his quiet presence suddenly more like a mountain. He said something in Spanish I didn't catch. Mateo stared at him, confused. "What did he say?" he asked, glancing between us. "He said the road back to the city is long," I replied, "and you should leave before the sun sets." Mateo didn't move at first, but something in Santiago's eyes must have made him pause. He turned, opened the car door, and this time, I watched him drive away. No tears, no breath held, no wondering if he'd come back. Just peace. Later that night, Rosa handed me something in a thick envelope. Documents. Partnership agreement. 1/3 ownership of the farm. Signed. Notarized. Official. "We were waiting," she said simply. "For right time." I stared at the paper, hands trembling. This wasn't kindness. This was trust. This was real. I had a home now. A business. A future. And no one could take that away from me. I opened my laptop and pulled up Claire's email again. The consulting job was still open. Remote. Flexible. Creative. I wrote her back. "Claire, I've been gone for a while, but I found someone I think I lost. Myself. I'd love to talk more about the position. Warmly, Isabella." I hit send. Then I shut the laptop, lit a candle, and sat on the porch while the sky turned orange and gold over the olive grove. This was mine. Not borrowed. Not earned by being quiet. Not handed to me because I was someone's wife. Mine. The day after Mateo left, I didn't cry. Not even a little. I expected to. I thought maybe the adrenaline would wear off and the grief would find its way in, slip under the door like smoke. But it never came. Because grief only grows in spaces where hope once lived. And I had stopped hoping for Mateo long before he left me on that Spanish street. The farm was quiet the next morning. Santiago brought in fresh eggs. Rosa hummed in the kitchen. The smell of pan con tomate and olive oil filled the air. I stood at the sink, washing my hands, watching the sun rise over the grove like it was performing just for me. This time, I didn't feel like a guest. I felt like part of the land. And not just the land, the people. That day, I walked into the village and did something I never expected. I bought a phone. A local one. New number. Spanish carrier. No connection to Boston. No traceable trail for anyone from the past. Clean slate. I messaged Claire with my new contact info. She called me that evening, and for the first time since leaving the States, I had a full, clear conversation in English. "I've got a team who's dying to work with you," she said. "I don't have a permanent address," I replied. "You've got Wi-Fi and ideas," she said. "That's all I need." We started small, just a few remote hours a week, helping them design sustainable spaces for boutique eco-lodges in the Mediterranean. The irony? My rustic life in Spain was suddenly the selling point. By spring, the olive trees were blooming again. Santiago and I expanded the grove, clearing out overgrown sections and planting 10 new saplings. He let me choose where they went. "These ones are yours," he said, patting the dirt around their roots. They weren't just trees. They were declarations. Every Friday, Rosa and I visited the market. I had my own corner of the table now, olive oil, herbal salves I'd started making, and the occasional design sketches for village homes. A few locals had started asking me for input. Paint colors, light flow, tile choices. I wasn't just surviving. I was contributing. One Saturday evening, we gathered in the village square for a local festival. Music played from a single battered speaker. String lights crisscrossed above the tables. Kids danced barefoot in the dirt. I sat beside Rosa, watching it all. A woman from Madrid leaned over and asked in Spanish, "Are you from here?" I started to say no, but stopped and smiled. "Sí. Ahora sí. Now, I am." Months passed. I barely thought about Mateo. When I did, it wasn't with anger. It was with distance. Like remembering an old house you moved out of a long time ago. You still remember where the light came in, but you don't miss the creaky floors. I never reached out to him. I never checked to see if he was back in Boston, or if he was telling people I had gone crazy and run off into the mountains. He can say whatever he wants. I'm not there to clean it up anymore. Camila called one night. Rosa answered the phone with shaking hands, Santiago leaning in behind her like a nervous teenager. They talked for 20 minutes, laughing, crying, filling each other in. Then Rosa handed the phone to me. "Isabella," she said. I took it, unsure of what I'd say. But Camila spoke first, in perfect English. Thank you. I haven't heard her this happy in years. I blinked back tears. I think we needed each other. She told me you saved her. No, I said, looking out at the trees. She saved me. And then one day, I got an email I didn't expect. Not from Mateo. From someone who used to know me, Jess, my best friend back home. She'd found me through the design company's new website. ISA, I don't know if you'll read this, but I just want you to know, I saw the news. I can't believe what Mateo did, but I'm so proud of you. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. No judgment, just love. I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, I'm doing okay. I think I'm better than okay. I'm not ready to come back, but maybe one day. Thank you for seeing me. The thing is, I didn't stay gone out of fear. I stayed gone because I found something better than the life I'd built in Boston. I found myself. Not the version shaped by others. Not the people pleaser. Not the fixer. Not the wife of. Just me. Some nights, I walked the grove under the moonlight and talked to the trees. I thanked them for catching me when I fell. For letting me grow alongside them. For teaching me that not everything has to be fast, or loud, or perfect. Some things are meant to be slow. Meant to be real. Like pressing oil from the earth. Or becoming who you were always meant to be. Final lines. Isabella's letter to herself. You weren't abandoned. You were released. You didn't run away. You stepped into your truth. And you didn't disappear. You finally arrived. If this story touched you, share it with someone who remembers those days too.